Okay, we're here today with Marion Jensen and his new residence in Aberdeen. And his son Doug is here with us. Rhonda and I, Ann, are here. We're going to visit with Marion a little bit about the history of the Municipal Building and any other little snippets he can share about Conde that might be of interest to us. So I guess, Marion, can you tell us how old you are and when you were born?
5/10/20.
1920 Marion was born, so that makes you 102, right? So
And I might be making it to 3.
yeah, I think you will.
If I get to May 10th, I'm 3.
Perfect.
And why I'm here, I did everything wrong, and I should have been dead a long time ago. And everything I did was wrong, and other people that did it are all dead. Now why am I here?
Well, I think you must have done something right.
To tell us your story today
That's right.
Yep.
Like what?
Okay.
on the Municipal Building.
Yep.
You're here to tell us about the Municipal Building today. That's why
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was there fairly early and went to a lot of moving picture shows, and we had, even when I was a kid, we went to them when they had them on usually cowboy crap on, Wednesday night, and usually it was pretty high priced. It was 10 cents. And then usually we didn't have enough money, but later, they had a guy there making popcorn, and maybe, you all both probably too young, he had that popcorn stand up by the old pool hall there, and made that, and I think that put him through college.
Was that one of the lenses?
Yeah,
One of the
Lynn's
lenses.
boy.
In charge of the popcorn, huh?
Yep.
And then we always had excitement into the Municipal Building, and I shouldn't tell this probably because it really doesn't matter, but we had a guy that wasn't quite all there, and he had a certain spot he stopped that he sat in every night. And if somebody else was in there, he raised hell about it. And then if things got too exciting on the move, he'd start yelling and hollering, and then any time that the film stopped, or happened to stop, then he'd start stomping his feet to let them know we didn't have a picture. But his folks had originally run the hardware.
That was the Rounds Hardware.
Oh, okay.
Well, I shouldn't be talking about that because that really didn't have much about the building, but
You told me the other day that there's a certain part of the auditorium where the young couples would like to go hang out.
The young people, and I never really got in on that, but all the young people stayed up high and on the right-hand side, and
Like they would
on
be
the right-hand side up there.
the northeast corner, possibly.
Anyhow, there's a lot of stuff that probably went on up there, but I didn't want to find out about it. So.
Yeah, probably not.
But quite often I had another girlfriend or something, and we always managed to handle things. Remember one time the fire alarm during the show went off, and I was sitting with some gal up at the top of the steps off to the south, and people went tearing out of there, and I thought somebody'd get killed. And when they got all done, for the next movie there, that is the next night, they'd have the movie, and then later you could have the movie, the same one, only have a new bunch of people. Well, anyhow, they were waiting on them, and they were out in front on the sidewalk, and they were leaning against the wall, and there was an old electric wire hanging there, and they got to lean it against that, and that's how they got the fire alarm going.
Oh,
Because at one time that had been fixed up so you could break it or do whatever you did with it, and you could start the fire alarm. So there's always excitement.
yeah.
I remember the rest of them tore out of there, and I told them don't be in any hurry, and we weren't, and at last we did go to that door that was towards the side and towards the west, and then we did look out at the fire escape outside. You know, they had a fire escape on both sides.
Yes.
And as I remember, I think there was one on for the people behind there. I think there was one there too.
Yep, they're all still there. One on each side.
I think now they've chained them in and put padlocks on them, and so they try and keep the people from fiddling around. And of course they did those. I never did go to those deals, and probably you people did, where they scared you, and they had big crowds, and I was always going to go. In fact, as I even gave them some of my electric motors and some of my junk around there, so they make it fancier.
Yep. In the last few years, we had the haunted house there.
And after a while, they headed upstairs. I don't know how they headed upstairs, but they apparently, if you were there, you'd know. But anyhow, I never even went downstairs. To begin with, it was just downstairs. And I was so damn sure that they probably, when they headed upstairs, they might take out a bunch of the seats. Oh, they never bothered the seats. The seats stayed right there.
Were you ever attending a movie when they had a fire? An actual fire?
Not really, but they did have fires. I think twice. And it was usually
In the projection booth?
projection
Oh,
booth.
sure.
The damn fools there, they had big deals with the film rolled up into it, and when they got done with them, of course you had a fire there that made the picture, because what do you call it?
They had to make the light bright enough to show a movie. The equipment had two carbon rods, and there was a huge spark in between. And the trouble is that film was acetate film, and if it caught fire, it was like gasoline. And so it happened twice, but you weren't there either time, huh? But they had huge, thick fire doors on the projection booth, but at least once for sure it caught fire so fast that you didn't get it shut in time.
Well, were the projectors, they were run by fuel oil or something? Or what?
Electricity.
They did run with electricity, okay.
Anyhow, that's a long time ago, and they usually had certain people, and I don't remember, I should remember the names of the people, because at the time I could have told you, but it's about like when I couldn't figure out who you were. And here we were playing guards.
Yeah.
Must have been you didn't show up too good to me.
I guess not. Not very memorable.
Mary, do you ever remember, were there ever any major entertainers that come to perform at the municipal building back in the day?
Yeah, I can remember a few of those. And I can remember when I was a kid, we went to some of those on Wednesday night there, and you didn't bring that old deal, did you, full of bullet holes?
No, it's in your file cabinet. I'll get it out here pretty
Probably
soon.
really doesn't matter, but they'd have a deal all printed out and how much it was and what the movie was, and you could look ahead of time, just like you do at Aberdeen. Lately, after even when my wife was still around, a lot of times we'd go and then we'd look along there and we'd never see a movie we wanted to see here. Usually they were always haywire or something wrong with them, or they weren't what we were thinking about. Mm. And yet they were popular yet, even then.
In the back of the building, there's the jail, the city jail.
Yep.
Did you ever have
I had about one, and I used it in my time when I helped and worked for the city, where the jail was, and where the guy that got locked in there, they had a space just for one person in there. And anyhow, what was I going to say about it? Oh, I stored my parts for the water department. And I was always having the water mains and stuff, it all went to hell there. And anyway, they were always leaking, and I never did get done fixing them. And then we did put in new ones, and I think we put them in, probably was about the third time, but this time they put in plastic.
When you were in high school, did you ever have put on a class play in the municipal building?
Just once.
And this
And
would
I had about 3 things to say, and I was a preacher. And why they put me even in there is beyond me. But, you know, we had that big old curtain to go up and down, and then they had a lot of lights up above, and then just out, like, looking out here, when you looked at the wall that was up high, there they had a deal with lights all the way along, and I think they're still there.
Yep, they are. Mm-hmm.
What year were you in the class play?
Huh?
What year were you in the class play?
No idea.
1937 or 38?
I was high school though, so
Yeah.
What year did you graduate?
38.
38, okay.
And I helped them. We made a booklet for the class. That's the first one, as far as I know, of ever for the class. And it was $1.50, and I didn't have $1.50, so I never even bought one, even though I'd helped make it.
So when
And I
you
waited years later, and I found one down in Clark at a junk place there where they had stuff. And I didn't save much money. It cost me $15.
Wow.
I still got that damn thing.
So when you graduated in 1938, where did you hold the graduation? Was it at the municipal building?
I'm sure it was. It had to be, because we hadn't built the other place yet.
Okay.
Sure.
And so I think we sat up there, and they did that even later. You sat in rows and chairs, and my outfit there, we had about 24 in my class, I think. And there were mainly a lot of girls in there, because I think about that time, and then even in our classes, probably in the spring and the fall, all he had is gals in there other than their athletes. Usually the athletes, but all they did is cause trouble and didn't study, and they'd pass them on because they were so damn good, and they were so good, I wouldn't even got to empty the water bucket for them, and so I wasn't interested in that. I was always fiddling around making the car run, or I was out on the farm making something, or making another piece of equipment, or always doing something, and most of it was kind of a waste of time, but anyhow, that's what I did with my spare time. And then later, I tried farming. Well, this doesn't help your...
When did you ever go to Memorial Day services?
We had them up there all the time, and they were fine. Your sound was just right, and you could hear everything about it. And now, even yet, down in the other place, I never did hear them with that amplifier there. The one down at Senile Center, that always worked somewhat better. I could understand it, but otherwise, I managed to ruin my ears. But anyhow, I didn't. One thing I didn't ruin was my eyes. I can still see reasonably well. I can still read.
Was there some particular Memorial Day that stands out to you, the speaker or something?
Well, I was telling you about it. A Coates, and he's a Civil War man, and he did a little talk up there, but it wasn't very much. But he went through Andersonville, if you know what I'm talking about. Well, that was the southern, where they put the guys that had surrender, they put them in there, and most of them all died, and he accidentally made it. And he'd been wounded, and supposedly somewhere down here, and must not have been any organ that mattered. And then he took an old rag, he said, and wrapped it around a ramrod like he'd used in a rifle, and cleaned his wound out. And then they made him starve to death, and he accidentally made it. And he gave this talk, and about all he said, really, you know, he was getting over the hill a lot. And we had quite a few buried yet that fought in the Civil War. And anyhow, he said the happiest day in his life was when that old engine come chugging in there and picked their guys up and took them back home again. And he had that from Crandall. He had about 2 or so miles to the south on the highway there, and that was what he built in a cement block house. And then he had a family there, and had some gals and some guys. Apparently the guys, I don't remember ever doing a hell of a lot of them. One, I think, tried to farm up in the hills a little bit, but anyhow, they managed, and a lot of people did that. The folks probably did something and got something done, and then when it come time for the relatives, why, it all went to hell.
I think that Coates passed on in about 1938, I believe. Well, the fire department used to be in the Municipal Building. Can you tell us about the fire department?
Well, I probably tried to tell them before, but anyhow, to begin with, I'm sure all we had was like that wagon out in front there, or maybe some buckets, and maybe a little ladder on each side, and That I think is probably one of the originals, but I could be wrong on that.
He's
But that
talking
was a
about
Model
the.
T,
he's
and that was, of course, later because Model Ts weren't around when that building was built,
yeah,
was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was 1918 it was built.
Yeah.
So there were Model Ts around.
Okay.
So the fire wagon that you pulled by hand, that might have predated the municipal building even.
Possible.
So they started out with the hand cart, and then they went to a Model T.
And like I said to begin with, had some equipment a little bit on it, but damn little. And had to have some hoses because we had the water department with the water and with the fire plugs. And I always remember them telling about, and I can tell stories, but anyhow, they had a big pump in the pump house, and it had a 10 horsepower gasoline one-cylinder motor, and by the time I worked for them, that was gone. But anyhow, one time, and I think probably was when the two-story building, and you'll see it on pictures, old ones, along where the pool hall is now, and where the pool hall was then was wood. And anyhow, when the guy rebuilt that, he tried to fix it so it would be fireproof. And the other building, it was a two-story brick building, and they probably had help getting on fire too, but then you don't know, because a lot of the fires around there, even later, when from the pool hall going east there, a couple of those buildings went, and then after a while they burnt the old ones down, but anyhow, but it was the same way with other places around our little towns that after a while it seemed like the fire took care of the main street.
So they did have a Model T fire truck one
Yes,
time.
definitely. And I think to begin with, it didn't even have the tank on it, but then it had a small tank. I was telling them about it,
Okay.
and then it was a type of thing that you put some water with stuff in it, and then you put an acid in it, and they were enclosed, and then it had a hose on the thing that you could reel out, and you had 50 gallons. I doubt it was more than 50, because that Model T couldn't handle too big a load, I don't think. But later we did get a fire deal there, and I think all it was an old small truck, but it had a pretty good sized water tank on the back end of it. And I think maybe that probably, I can't remember if that outfit had a pump on it or not, because more than likely it had a pump on the back end there, because later on they had a lot of those on, even though they had, what was I going to say about it? Oh! They had this old truck in there, and it must have been a tank, must not have been too good a tank, because anyhow, fire department took off, and I didn't go on it. I don't think I was quite into the fire department yet then. But anyhow, they tore out by Crandall, because I think it wasn't a building, I think it was either a tractor or a vehicle or something. I'm not going to guarantee you what it was. But anyhow, when they got there, they were ordered to stop and hook up the hose, gonna put the fire out. Tank was empty.
Oh,
And anyhow, that tank had sat there so long that it dripped out and there was a crack in the floor. And so it must have been we didn't have too damn many fires then, because you know it'd take a long time for a 200 or 250 gallon tank. It just drip, so, and didn't run away from there, otherwise we'd have known about it. But
The Model T didn't have a pump on that one, and they added carbolic acid to the tank to make pressure. But later on, they banned carbolic acid fire extinguishing equipment, so you can't do that anymore. Later on, you had a LaFrance fire truck.
a what?
LaFrance brand fire truck.
Well, if he did, that was never there, because that stuff was bigger, and that would have been over there where the fire department is now.
Oh,
And to begin with, we had a building there by itself, and they've added on, but it was fair-sized. And I remember we had put in another water line. That doesn't help you guys. I shouldn't be talking about the fire department other than what was there at your building.
did you ever go to a dance down on the dance floor there?
I wasn't a dancer, so I never got to those, and they were very, very early in there, and it was prohibition time a little later, and the guys, anyhow, I had plenty of drinking in there, and I think that was pretty a wild, wild place. And that's why I and my wife never went to dances, because usually whoever was in there had a bottle, and they were out there talking together, and usually somebody else's wife, and you didn't exactly know what was going on, but anyhow, it probably was perfectly all right, but anyhow, we didn't. And they also, about that time, they had, where you run around in circles and dance.
square dance.
Yeah, square dance. And they must have had some of those in there, but they did go to other houses and around the country, and there again, we didn't go to there because they always had drinking, and we weren't into drinking. And so we missed out on a lot of stuff.
Just about